Hey guys, welcome to the fifth episode of Unboxing DevRel. And in this episode, we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Christina Monti. She is a developer advocate at PayPal. And for the rest of the introduction, I left that part to her. So, Christina, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. Thank you. So again, my name is Christina Monti. I currently am product manager at PayPal for developer relations. And I love and appreciate all things DevRel.
All
I
right,
don't know if
that
you want
was
more than that.
that was great. But I would like to know, Christina, what do you think about the DevRel space? And before answering that, I would like to ask you that how did you start off your journey into the technical space itself?
Yeah. So I will start with that. I have an unconventional path into DevRel and technology, generally speaking. I have consistently, throughout my career, been in the financial aspects of banking and or transaction processing and payments. So we could call it payments if you'd like. I've worked
Right.
at large corporations, major banks, and third-party processing companies. I've done completely different roles from being a teller to integrating merchant solutions, all the way up to managing content, program management. And I have ultimately landed into DevRel within PayPal. Now, if you wanted to understand how I got to technology, I do have another unconventional way of getting
Yeah,
into
please.
technology. So, when I was at one of the large banks, I went into UAT testing, so user acceptance testing. And
Hmm.
that's where my technology track began, was ensuring that I was accepting the tests that developers were making for the solutions that they were providing from a technical perspective. I also did a stint of writing technology or writing tests for another major bank. So I was writing the payment tests that were being executed um, on the solutions that developers were making. And then when I got to PayPal, I've done everything outside of product management, program management, analytics, all of the above, which landed me into DevRel. And I've been here ever since.
All right. That was like a mix of a lot of different kind of experiences, right? So the question is, how did you land up in this role finally? Like, did you choose it in the first place, or did that naturally came to you? Like, your company came to you and said, "Okay, Christina, we want you to lead the DevRel from today onwards."
Yeah, great question. I will, for the third time in this session, say that I had an unconventional path into DevRel. It was,
But how
it
can we
was
help it? It is actually.
It is, yeah. It's totally an unconventional path, and I guess if anything, somebody learns from this is that you don't have to have the same path as anyone else. There's nothing
Right.
necessarily defining that you're gonna have the exact same path as anyone else. My path was completely different, and you can make it when you don't have the conventional path, right? So that would be
Right.
my takeaway for anyone that's listening to this session. But for me, I was at a point in my career where I wanted to start product management, leading more efforts, and being a strategist, and making sure I'm driving to the overall execution. And there was the opportunity to lead DevRel, and I took it. Now, if you were to ask what I think, or I hypothesize what got me there, is
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of my career listening and trying to understand. 2 years of my life I spent looking at Excel spreadsheets and just reading through feedback from developers and listening to developers' challenges and pain. I In the organization, I am definitely different in the fact that I'm willing to cross lines with that, with like ask the hard questions, ask the dumb
Yeah.
questions, be the person in the room just to say, hey, why did we do this? What are we doing? Do we know the
Right.
impact? Did you hear about that impact? Making sure we're bringing back that voice of what the impact
Yeah.
was, from decisions that were being made. So I
True.
think that gave me the opportunity because I was willing to put myself out there in a way that some people weren't.
Right. And how are you going about this role? Um, like we were talking about your role as DevRel in PayPal, and you told me about some of the things which were very unconventional to me. I think I have also said it, unconventional law, but yeah, it was actually. So, can you please define that? What is your role actually, and what do you do at PayPal as a DevRel?
Absolutely. So I will say, or I'll do my public service announcement. Every DevRel group, organization, how they're structured, what they do is going to be different from company to company.
Right. Right.
Ours, the way that we have ours set up is we are product and engineering. So I sit on the product side of the house where I am creating the strategy, the overall vision, and making sure that we're executing to the priorities that are set for the DevRel advocates. That does include content creation, that does include outreach, that does include support, and it also
Right.
includes something that I consider Voice of the Developer, which is a program that I lead within the DevRel space to provide opportunities for developers to come and ultimately tell their challenges to our product and engineering leaders
Right.
with their experience using our products, just making sure that we're listening actively and empathetically to developers and they have a space to be able to voice their challenges with our solutions. So yeah, that's my day to day. I mean, I definitely have probably unconventional things that I do on a day to day basis, but I am
Yeah.
consistently supporting developers out in the communities, and I'm also supporting developers internal, right? It's definitely not
Right.
exclusive to just external developers. I'm making sure that
Right.
I'm voicing that opportunity. I will say that I truly believe, this is my opinion,
Yeah.
your external developer experience is a direct reflection of your internal developer experience. So if you find that your external developer experience is hard, difficult, all the above,
Right.
I have a correlation that it could be that your internal developer experience is equally as hard.
Hmm. Well said. Like I think it takes experience to even understand this line, but I hope I'm getting this right. But you just talked about creating a program where you started voices of developers, right? So this does that came to you naturally because you were figuring out the developer relations role and you figured out what my responsibilities will be, or did you learn it from somewhere that okay I should do this because I think eventually it will help us and help the community to eventually grow?
I'd say it was the latter. It was that I started providing these opportunities, and the more I provided these opportunities, the more people wanted to be involved and they wanted to
Hmm.
listen. So, in an organization that doesn't necessarily lead with developer first, I think there's a lot of appetite for understanding the challenges that developers face. And
Right.
when you have organizations that are not developer first, but they're creating solutions that are for a merchant or a consumer, they may not even understand what the challenges that they're creating are.
Right.
They don't even, it's just difficult when you talk about product management and building solutions. If you're not developer first, then how are developers supposed to support it? I mean, I can't
Exactly.
understand the concept because you talk about COVID, right? And I truly believe that COVID thrusted all organizations. We talk about DevRel right
Right.
now as a hot topic. It's a hot topic because why?
Yeah.
Who gets people online? Developers. So
Yes.
if a developer's experience is bad, they're very influential at this point. They have the influence to be able to say, I'm not going to do this. It's going to take me 6 weeks with this
True.
experience of an API or SDK or any kind of solution design. And I could go
Right.
to that competitor and do it in 2. Why would I not go to that competitor and do it to 2? Mr. Merchant, consumer, customer, whoever you
Whatever it is.
are,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I choose that one regardless. I mean, there may be obviously some
Obviously,
trade-offs
because they don't
in
care,
some
right?
things.
They're looking
Mhm.
out for convenient and easy solutions, and
Mhm.
which is I think a fair demand. So okay, yeah. You have a team of developer relations at PayPal, or is there are you solo developer relations engineer over there?
I was a team of one for a very long time.
Okay,
That
team
was
of one.
rough. Let me tell you, that was rough.
All
I
right,
was a team of one, and then we started to hire our engineers. So the engineers are the ones that are executing on a day-to-day basis the things that we have in our roadmap and making sure that we're creating the alternative content and supporting with alternative blog posts or we also dog food our own docs. So we make sure that our documentation and the developer experience is removing the friction points for
yeah,
developers to ensure that that is an optimized experience. We are a net new group, right? So if you have
right,
anyone listening to this and they're like, I've seen developer for PayPal, I've seen, and they're like, I know that you didn't do this. I'll be like, well, we're new. Give us a little time, but we
right,
have a roadmap. We have all the things. We're organizing what's priority and making sure that the developer experience is optimized and improved to the
right.
next level of our standards. We definitely need to raise our bars.
Right. And how do you think of managing that team? Like somebody, must be managing the whole developer relations team. So are you the one who is leading it, or is there someone else?
I think that's probably like a gray area question because like there's people management, right? There's people that like
Yeah.
there's a manager to manage the people, and then
Right.
there's a product manager to manage the roadmap. So I
Right.
am responsible for day-to-day execution and making sure that the team is doing the right things at the top of the list and helping to
Right.
unblock them in any situations they have with product or other teams. I definitely have that responsibility to make this a very well-oiled machine where we're fully operating and just executing on the roadmap. We have
Right.
no blockers. We are making sure our backlog is little. I mean, I don't know whose backlog is little. I don't think anybody's backlog is little, but
That's true.
yeah,
Nobody's
I
is.
don't. I don't think anybody, unless you just started
Yeah.
today. But then you still have a really long backlog because you got all the things you have to do just to
Exactly.
get started.
Exactly. So,
So
so what is your definition of the leadership in that sense? Like you have been looking at the product management side, but still you are somewhat managing things, you are somewhat leading things at a certain angle, right? So,
yes.
what is leadership according to you in that sense?
So how let me rephrase. Like, how do I hold myself accountable to be a leader, or how do I work with the leadership that manages the team? Like, help me with that one.
What is leadership for you when you manage things out, when you are in a role where you have to look out for certain people as well as certain things? By things, I
Yeah,
mean certain responsibilities. So, how do you look after that? Like what is your way of judging things? Okay, this should be my way of handling this out.
I'd say that leadership for me is having an opinion, right? So I will tell you, I am the last person to bring into a room that's not going to have an opinion because I always have an opinion on something.
Yeah.
Um, Not that it's ever right. It's not always right. It could be wrong. It could be
Right.
right. I mean, I'm okay with that. We talked about this. I've listened to feedback for so
True.
long that I am empathetic to anyone's opinion of me or the work that I'm doing. So, but I will come with an
But
opinion.
yeah.
So I think having an opinion, having a vision, having a strategy, ensuring that the things that I'm asking the engineers to do is very clear, defined,
Yeah.
and we know where we're going. I think that's like the hardest part between DevRel and a roadmap and success is knowing where you're
Yes.
going. What are you trying to achieve? And
Right.
if you were to look at just the simple program that I have for Voice of Developer, there's no like KPIs really for me in bringing the
Yeah.
voice back. It is
Yeah.
really more driving empathy and active listening within our engineering and product teams, so that
Yeah.
when they go to do their job on a day-to-day basis, they're going to remember that session I had with the developer who told us about how challenging it was to code for transaction reports, like,
Yeah.
or try to create a new button for something, right? I mean, I want that
Right.
not to be qualitative but quantitative. Maybe it's the other way around, I don't know, but I want them to I want them to like, what's the word, they need to like,
They need to
um
empathize with the problems that the developers are facing. You're trying to say that?
yes, they need to empathize, they need to think about when they're building, right? So if I'm building a net new product and I'm trying to do not a docs first development approach, I'm just doing development,
Okay.
and then I get to the end of the day and it's like the 9th hour and I need to document and I only document half of that. How is that helpful to the guy who we just
True.
heard from? You know what I mean? Like, I want them to have top of mind the
Right.
end user's experience, because developers are going to consume this in one way or another. Whether it's your internal
Right.
developers that are using or consuming your product that you're developing within the teams, right? Because that's
Right.
equally as important. That goes back to my
Exactly.
point of, if your external developer experience is a reflection of your internal. If someone's
Internal.
not
Yeah.
doing their docs to the nth degree and giving all of what's in here to the page, I mean, it's going to be a bad developer experience.
True. True that. And how do you think about developer relations versus marketing? Because there is a myth, I believe, in this industry currently, that developer relations is compared directly with marketing, or somewhat people try to say developer relations is more of marketing, right? So, what is your view on that?
It's an argument. I don't know.
Yeah, but
Like, I
still,
think you're just going to be opinionated, right? You're
we
going to
don't
have
have to be
opinions.
right or wrong. We don't have to be right or wrong
No.
here.
Mm-mm.
It's only about how we interpret that.
I think if I could talk about my own perspective, I know, acknowledge, and understand that every organization and everybody's going to have a different opinion about, is it marketing or is it not. I do think that in a sense, it is pre-marketing, because of the fact that you're trying to build a community to talk about and share and do the things that engage and grow your community. So
Right.
how could you not consider it some form of sales or pre-sales? I put a lot of weight on the fact that I've done a lot of understanding. I listen.
Yeah.
Developers will rely on their community before they will rely on your docs, on your product, on your this. They will look to the
Right.
community before they will go and pick your solutions, your products, your this, right?
Right.
Um, they do not, they don't need, developers don't need conventional marketing. They don't want to be
Yeah.
marketed to, right? They want to know that their
Yeah.
community is using the solution, they're advocating for the solution, and that's how they are ultimately marketed. So if you want to, I mean, you could argue that it is or it's not. I mean, I'm sure that there's aspects that it is part of marketing.
Right.
But I think, it shouldn't necessarily be the funnel. It shouldn't be, DevRel shouldn't be where we're tracking adoption, where we're doing, we are an arm to adoption. But if you're talking
Right.
about the different products, there's different aspects to, so for example, if I'm selling a new subscription product and
Okay.
developers are going to code this new subscription product, your funnel doesn't
Yes.
start with a developer. Your funnel starts with sales to the merchants about subscriptions, so that they
Right.
can start talking to developers, and developers better have a community that's talking about that subscription product, or else they're going to be like, nope. I don't want it. I don't want to deal with it. There's no community around
Right.
it. I don't even think, I don't know. Right. So they're
Right.
going to put more on the community than anything else.
And what are your views about community? Like people talk about community building, right? So what is community building according to you?
You know, I'm studying that right now.
Yeah, I think me too.
um,
I would say.
I want to say that a lot of my perspective is based on my own experience of building communities. I have my own brand, me, just like you have your own
Right.
brand. Everybody has their own brand. And I have built my community with regards to empathy and with regards to understanding and finding solutions. I will say that I consistently have people in my community that I know I can count on, and they know they can count on me. So
Yeah.
for me, a community, if you're trying to build this for an organization, it has to be built on those foundations, right? You have to understand
Right.
and know that you have someone to go to, you have support, you have empathy, you have, at the end of the day, all of us in any community, whether it's in my home with my kids, at home or work,
Right.
we all just want to be successful. And
True.
if you don't have anyone there to help you along the way with questions, or I need you to help unblock me here, do this, or do you know the answer to this, right? If you
Right.
don't have those people, you can't build a community. You don't have a community.
Hmm. True. I got it, and I hope everyone got it.
Let's hope
Yeah.
so. Let's hope
And
I'm being clear.
yeah, you are being clear. You're not trying to define things, I would say, but you are in a sense trying to uh, break them down into certain pieces, and now you can collect them and try to define yourself, try to define it yourself. So that's great. We are not getting into again the boxes. We are trying to interpret things in a way.
Yep.
That's nice. In the developer space, we also talk about content creation. I think a huge part of developer relations is portrayed as building content for the community, and a lot of saying, not a lot of listening. But today I learned from you that it's about a lot of listening more than just saying, right? What is
Yep.
your opinion on that? Because on Twitter you would find, I'm not judging anyone on this, I think, again, as you said, it depends on use cases of certain companies as well. Which one is your priority? Maybe certain companies priority is to create content first and then move into something other thing. But according to you, what is content creation, and how much important role does it play in the developer relations space?
So I'm gonna categorize because it's easier for me to describe if I categorize. So I think we all understand that there is typical technical documentation, a user guide, an API reference, all the things that come with building a technical solution. I think there's alternative content. I
Mm-hmm.
think that there are aspects of the way that the world is today that we as organizations and DevRel teams need to acknowledge, which teams are doing amazing jobs at this. But at
Right.
least for me, we need to acknowledge that the world does not learn through guides anymore. They're not necessarily learning through an API reference anymore. And we have to more or less get with the times and provide alternative ways of learning, whether that's a YouTube video, whether that's TikTok, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a thing. There's a tech
Why not?
TikTok. Like, I mean,
Yes.
we
Why
just
not?
have to acknowledge these things that there's so many different platforms. I have done, enough research to understand that a lot of the developers are just coming out of college and they're
Yeah.
not getting masters in computer science. They basically went for something and then they're like, well, I love computers. Let me go watch some YouTube videos and figure out how to code in Next.js or in Vercel, right? They're doing these
Right.
things that are alternative to the conventional way of learning. And the expectation is that we need to provide alternative content. So we have to create videos that are helping to unblock if there is a lot of friction in a certain
Right.
aspect of solution building, or a blog post that helps people understand why they're going to use something. I mean, nowadays we almost make these assumptions that it's like, oh, I made this thing and you want it. Why do I want it? I don't know why I want it. Like, tell
Right.
me why I
You're
want
just
it, right?
assuming. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of assumptions that are made for like why someone would use something. So I do truly believe that we have to provide these alternative ways, whether it's the blogs, the videos, TikTok, Twitter, whatever it may be, the
Yeah.
platform. My biggest learning is that developers want you to engage where they're at, not where we're at. So
Yeah.
you can't just put up the thing and think that they're going to come to you and be like, hey, I want to see your thing. No, you got to go out. You got to engage with developers. They don't want to come to
Right.
you, they want you to come to them. So I
Right.
definitely have a perspective, and that's why I think we've tried harder to be out in the communities. It's very easy for you to become invisible if you're not out there. So you
Right.
have to get out there. You have to be in front of people with regards to being supportive, empathetic, solutioning, listening, bringing back feedback. You have to be out there is this, the stance I take. Now, I will
Mm-hmm.
say, we talked about earlier, DevRel as a role.
Yeah.
I feel like there is no one way. There's no like, you're going to be out doing public speaking. You're going to do this, you're going to do that. Like, I think for me, my biggest learning is that DevRel should be played to your strengths. If you want to build the sample apps in the background and you don't want to be in front of all of the people answering questions and being a face, absolutely okay. There's nothing wrong with that in my
Right.
mind. I would rather have someone that's focused on some aspect of a developer experience and where we should be focusing, like their passions, because
True.
that's where that person's going to thrive. He or
Yeah.
she's not going to thrive if they're being put out onto a stage and having to do a presentation, which they hate being in
Right.
public. So I
Right.
I really love DevRel, and at least the role that I get to play, because I lead with that. I don't lead with, you're going to be as a DevRel advocate doing this, and this, because those are the four things that we're doing. I'm like, what do you want to do? Where are your strengths?
Mm.
Where's your passion? I want you to thrive in the role that you're playing in developer
Right.
relations. And that's the opportunity that I was given, right? So as a DevRel
Right.
advocate PM, I was given the opportunity to create a voice of developer where someone can come in, VPs and everyone's listening. And that's my passion. That's where I thrive. That's where I shine. And I just
Yeah.
appreciate being able to be given that opportunity.
Wow. That's so nice. Like, that's so fresh kind of perspective to me of DevRel. So I would like to thank you in the first place for this. And also, I would like to know that what is your passion at the end of the day? I see that maybe I'm wrong on this, but you're passionate about people, what they think about. You're passionate about their problems. So am I wrong in saying that, or is it something else?
Nope. I'm such a people person, and I live for people to be successful, myself including, right? I mean, I live for people to be successful. I live for a community that's built up on lifting others up versus bringing people down. I have been in
Right.
technology for so long. I've seen cultural shifts in how it used to be, where it was like you would go to an engineering team and it was like, if you asked the dumbest question in the room, you were chastised. You were almost like, what are you doing asking this question? You should be
Everyone is
smarter than
staring
that.
at you, and yeah.
right? Like, I mean, it
Right.
wasn't a very healthy environment, and that's where I'm
True.
trying to change the model where it's like, why shouldn't it be a healthy environment where you can ask a dumb question because
Right.
you may not know, or maybe you had a different understanding of the question than somebody else. I mean, this is just for me. I love enabling people to be successful. I love helping people solve problems and moving on.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I love helping people solve root cause problems, because there's a difference between solving problems and the root
And the
cause
cause
of
of
a
the problem.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most two best thing according to you about DevRel, and what are the most two, you would say, hard thing about DevRel so far?
So let me ask a next level question. Do you mean for me as a DevRel advocate who's doing the job, or as a
Yeah.
DevRel who's making the strategy for the job, or which aspect do you want me to answer the question from? Because I think I'll have two different answers.
I think I would like to listen both of them because we are discussing perspectives here. So why not
Yeah.
discuss about both of them? Yeah.
So as a product owner, I think the hardest part of DevRel is making sure that we're doing the right things, which I don't know. There's like this gut feeling, you're doing the right things, or you're not doing the right things. Like there's a
Right.
lot of opportunity to like research and figure out. But I will say, if you're listening empathetically and actively, you will know you're doing the right things.
Okay.
Um, the other thing I think is hard is, for me, this may not be across the board, this may not be for everyone, but I
Right.
think it's hard for me in an organization that isn't necessarily developer first, trying
Okay.
to continue to advocate why it's important, what's important about it, how, like, it is a very challenging experience just trying to advocate for someone that isn't considered part of, right? So
True.
and I'm not digging on my company or anybody's company. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if we as an if an organization doesn't acknowledge and recognize the importance of a segment, and you have that segment to advocate for, it's
Yeah.
extremely hard to get buy-in, to get support, to get
Yeah.
resources, to get all of the things. You have to have someone that believes in that vision and mission and the segment to be able to advocate from the top down. You cannot do it bottom up. There is no way you can do it bottom up,
Right.
because there's
Right.
no, yeah, it just can't happen. So those are the biggest things for me as a product owner that are the most
Mm-hmm.
challenging. Everything
Mm-hmm.
else just falls, into it's all the backlog of things. I mean, there's a huge list of that from a
Okay.
challenge perspective. But as a
Right.
DevRel advocate, if I'm someone who comes in and I'm having to do the job, and some people could say, you don't do the job. How do you know this? Well, I don't do the job necessarily, but I see the struggles that people are having with doing the job. So
Right.
prioritization is hard. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard because of the different themes that DevRel holds, right? So
Right.
content, support, outreach.
Right.
If you are trying to create a video and it's taking you 2 weeks, and you've got this guy or girl posting on GitHub about a Stack Over or a Git issue, and then they're going to Stack Overflow, and then they're DMing you on Twitter, and then they're doing this, right? What do you do first,
Right.
right? So it does.
You have to prioritize. Yeah.
You have to prioritize. You have to be okay with saying yes when, or
Hmm.
I mean, you could say no. You could say no in a very eloquent way and say, yes, I
Right.
can help you, but I need to get through this first, right? I think there's
Right.
there's healthy boundaries that developer relations have to put on themselves to ensure their own
True.
success. Even though
True.
we all feel like our biggest role is supporting developers and supporting, we have to
Yeah.
understand that there is more to supporting, and we redefine what support means. Support does mean creating a video, right? Support does
Right.
mean creating a sample app or doing sample code that's improving an experience. So just redefining
True.
what support means from a DevRel perspective is extremely important for your overall ability to manage, and always saying yes when, yes when I'm done, yes when I have time. It's the
Yeah.
alternative of just being that roadblock and saying no, I can't help you. No, yes, I can help you, but I need to finish this first.
But yeah. Yeah. All
The
right.
other thing
Like,
from a DevRel perspective, I actually no, I'd say that that's the biggest one. That's the big one, and it's big
okay.
enough that it doesn't even deserve or warrant a second.
All right. All right. Well said. What advice would you give to anyone who wants to enter into this DevRel role now? Since we have talked about the best things about DevRel, the hardest things about DevRel, I think all of those things are just our perspectives. We can look at those same things maybe in a different way. Maybe for someone, what we are saying is hardest. Maybe that's not hard for them, and for someone, we say this part is easy and it's not easy for them at all, right? But having said that, what advice would you give to anyone who wants to enter into this role as of today?
It's a great question, and I'm going to lead with my own perspective of don't be afraid to go the unconventional route. There are so many opportunities that don't necessarily have a need for a degree, or you have to be a coder in iOS. Granted, now I will say there are going to be stipulations by companies. There are going to be, you know, their own priorities, their own expectations, their own this, but don't let
True.
that stop you from trying. I think I said it before, we all bring a different kind of value. You have to
Right.
define what that value is for you that you bring into DevRel. If you're super passionate about public speaking and you want to talk about thought leadership and how that impacts developer relations or technology, go do it. Don't even wait for
Yes.
someone to tell you to do it. Just do it. Put yourself out there and take that leap of faith. It's going to be scary. It's going to be challenging, and you're going to feel like you're being judged. And you are. Like, that's the reality. You are being judged, but you have to
Yes.
be okay with the judgment. You have to be okay with someone saying they don't like your opinion. And that's fine. It's absolutely
Right.
okay. Um, I do always go back to there's all there's so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so funny because we generalize things in such a way that we almost minimize the amount of things that have to be done in any type of role,
Right.
program, project. And there's these unspoken expectations that if you're doing this, you're going to project manage, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. There's
Yeah.
so many things to do. There's so many things. Who's going to be managing SEO? Who's going to be managing automation? Who's going to be managing apps? Who's going to maintain all this? Because I will say that
Right.
the biggest challenge anyone has, and I will take arguments all day long, but
Mm-hmm.
maintenance is never considered. It's always about creating. Who's going to maintain? What's the plan for maintaining? I mean, even when you talk about content creation and developer relations, you better
Right.
have on your quarterly planning some kind of maintenance for all of those videos to validate that they're up to date, to validate nothing's
Right.
wrong, to do all the things,
Right.
right? So, I mean, there's so much to do. Don't be afraid of taking that leap. If you want to be the person
Yes.
that's maintaining stuff, be the person that's maintaining that. Write the role for
Yes.
yourself. I think that's where my biggest opportunity has been. If there's no role, companies love when you write the role and fill the gap yourself. I feel like
True.
for me, That's my biggest learning in a large organization. What we don't understand is when we go into these companies, everyone, it feels like they're going to be at a maturity level 5 and they're going to have all their things ready. They're going to have the best analytics, the best processes, the best this, the best that, best this, right? You get in there and you're like, what's
Right.
happening? Like, it's just like holes everywhere, right? Fill those
Right.
gaps and you provide your value. Like, that's where you
True.
shine, is, filling gaps, making changes, driving organizational maturity. Like, I will advocate for that all day long, because you're only helping the company and driving the value that you bring within that company to
Yeah.
continue year over year. I mean, if I can do a
Right.
new process this year, it'll last PayPal or any company that I work for another 10
Yeah.
years, right? So it's just,
True.
it's finding those gaps, writing your roles, finding the passions, and just accepting, if you have a role that you're looking for, that's the role you're looking for. Don't settle. Don't go for
Right.
something where your values don't align. I appreciated my role, the ability to have the space that I have to define what my role and what success means to me. And
Right.
ultimately, that's how I provide to our DevRels. I give them the opportunity to shine where they shine. I'm not going to define what their
Right.
shine looks like. They tell me.
Right. And I would like to add one point to that. Like, we can do all of this that you said once we figure out or determine which kind of company is that, right? In the first place, if we are going to enter in a certain company which doesn't give us space, which doesn't allow us to experiment, which doesn't allow us to, give us freedom and making our way ourselves by setting certain goals, then all of this that we are discussing right now will not make sense eventually, right?
Yep.
Agree.
True.
So I think we should also determine which kind of company are we aligning ourselves with, and then obviously look out for all those things which we actually love. And I really like the way you have put it in words, that whichever is your strength, try to fill that gap in, because there would be something which is left out and maybe you are good at it, you feel about it, go do it, and the company will acknowledge it, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that's awesome. All right. On that note, I think, Christina, we have almost tried our best to simplify the role of DevRel. I think maybe it will take one more hour to get into this. Maybe it will take a sequel part to it. But I hope and I think that we have almost figured out the first layer of DevRel for everyone today. We have simplified it for all, and thank you so much for doing that in the first place, I would say. And any last thoughts for all the people who are listening to this and who are going to listen to this?
Yeah, I love to acknowledge DevRel currently. So those folks that are doing DevRel currently, and those that are thinking of doing DevRel, in the fact that you are being extremely vulnerable as a person when you're doing developer relations in one way or another. And it is very challenging to do that. And I want to acknowledge people's ability to stand up and be in a vulnerable state while sharing publicly, being supportive. I think that it takes a lot of strength to do that. And I think that there's a lot of amazing people in the organization, just like of DevRel, whether it's like
Right.
in my company, any other company, like the community is an amazing community with people that just want to see others succeed. And I completely appreciate that. So I think, if anyone is looking to be in DevRel, coming to terms with that vulnerability is probably the biggest hurdle, but it's not unattainable. It is attainable. You can do it, and you just need to stand up, write a blog, share it, or go to
Right.
a conference, speak. Meetups are great places. Make a video and share that, and just ask for feedback. Be open to
Yeah.
someone saying that it's not that great and I need you to do this. Or go to those people in your inner circle and say, hey, can you tell me what you got valuable from this new video that I created? I mean, it's all about trial and error. So
Yes.
I would 100% say that I support anyone currently and or that's trying to get into DevRel in any way, shape, or form. And I think the whole community is behind you.
Well said. All right, then, Christina, thank you so much for joining in the session today and being my guest on the Unboxing DevRel's episode 5. We are almost in the mid of our season 1 of Unboxing DevRel, and you are our like super guest because it's the 5th episode. I will wrap up the whole season on the 10th episode, so we are almost in the mid of it. So it's my pleasure to have you today, and it was my pleasure to get to know a lot of different things about the space of DevRel, because as I told you before, I'm also very new to DevRel, and I'm also figuring out what is DevRel and how to do it, and a lot of things into that. So you have actually solved a lot of things for me by this conversation. It was very valuable to me, and I hope it will be for all of us who are listening to it. Once again, thank you so much, and see you in the next part. Maybe we will make one more part, diving more into DevRel and talking about some other aspects of it. Till then, take care,
Absolutely.
and yeah, bye bye.
Thank you.